We are a Baltimore's community museum, which means that we welcome all of Baltimore to share their stories. And those stories are collected online, virtually, and then also in person. Since we've opened our 208-year-old building, we completed a renovation project a few months ago, and we are now open doing many exhibitions of both Baltimore artists and people from around the globe. So we welcome you to come and join us and visit us here, but as well as some of our future online programs. I'm going to introduce you tonight to Lexi Tyson. She is a fellow here working at the Peale, and she's a junior at the University of Maryland, and this is her first curatorial project. Lexi, if you could take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge the Susquehannock and Piscataway people whose ancestral land the Peale and Baltimore City currently occupies. We acknowledge the traditional stewards and people of this land and the importance of its health. We encourage all of our viewers to take time to learn our land's history and the erasure of its indigenous people in order to offer a road to mindful restorative efforts. A Feast in the Desert was created with the intention of unifying and supporting our community. The Peale, where our exhibition lives, is in a food desert, along with most of Baltimore City. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, food deserts are areas that have limited access to affordable and nutritious foods. They can be attributed to a root of causes from food insecurity, racial segregation, proximity to supermarkets, and access to vehicles, along with various other social factors. I'm now happy to introduce you to one of our partners and the founder of Outcast Food Networks, Lawrence Sanders.
Good evening, I'm Lawrence Sanders with Outcast Food Network, one of the benefactor food programs for this exhibition. And so Outcast Food Network, our mission is to feed hungry people and to provide services around food, health, and work programs to enhance people's lives so that they will have healthier life outcomes. And so when I look at what it is that we do, we started out feeding 100 homeless people, providing providing hot meals for 100 homeless people. That was in 2017, and we've grown to now have 5 food distributions, grocery distributions per month, providing enough food to feed 3,200 people. And so, when I look at food insecurity, there's so many, though we're providing food, there's so many effects. So while we're providing food, it's important for Outcast Food Network to also try to help people become more self-sufficient and address some of the other ills. So in addition to providing food, we also provide SNAP outreach, in which we recruit individuals and educate the community about SNAP benefits. We also assist them through the application process to ensure that they want SNAP. We find if they're eligible, we connect them to DSS. And so feeding them, but also providing them with resources to go out and buy food. And the other project that we have that really affects food insecurity as well, because we know that COVID-19, right? Many more families fell into food insecurity after COVID-19. So we also have we have the food program, the SNAP program, and we also have the COVID-19 vaccine clinics, and we provide flu shots as well. And so with that particular program, again, addressing all of the ills that food, because those individuals that are food insecure, they can't find food. They also are unhealthy because they can't get to, because of the social ills that they're dealing with, they can't get to the vaccine either as well. So we make sure that though they can't get to where the vaccines are, we bring the vaccines to where they are, to those hard to find individuals. And so that's Outcast Food Network in a nutshell, and the programs that we have going on at this time.
Nice meeting you, sir.
Thank you, Lawrence. So we're going to go ahead and get started now, guys. First, I would like to introduce you all to our 4 featured artists. If you could all go ahead and give us your full names and the name of your art in the show, we can go ahead. And I know we have one of our artists joining virtually. I'd love for them to go first.
Oh, I'm the one joining virtually, I guess. Hi, everyone. I'm Schroeder Cherry, and I'm happy to be a part of this project. Thanks for including me.
Okay. And now if you would like to start.
Hello, my name is Maurice Scarlett III, and I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. And my piece is called The People's Free Food Program. It's based on the food program the Black Panthers did in the 1969, I believe. So it's focusing on that a lot.
All right. Well.
Hello, my name is Raman Knight. The name of my piece is Food and Nutrition, and it's a collection of receipts from lots of different grocery stores across Maryland.
Hi, I'm Chloe Griffin from PG County, Maryland, and my piece is titled Sundays, focusing on, home cooked meals on a good Sunday.
All right. Thank you all for joining us tonight. The first question I would like to ask you all, what is your connection with food? Anyone can jump in.
My connection with food, I grew up like around a lot of Caribbean food and just like different cultures and just really diversifying the type of food that I eat. And this is like now I'm more intentional about what I eat now and just more mindful.
Yeah, I'd say the same about being more like mindful and intentional about what I eat now. I feel like as a child, I was a very picky eater. So like I wasn't eating a lot of stuff anyway. And so my relationship with food wasn't really the best growing up. But nowadays, like I'm vegetarian now. And so what I choose to eat and stuff is way more intentional. Like I don't really eat fast food anymore or like meats. And I try to stay away from like dairy, things like that. So yeah, I feel like it's definitely gotten better. And I'm like less picky about what I eat now. So yeah, I think it's definitely gotten better, my relationship with it.
Can I join in at this point? Hello? Can you guys hear me?
My relationship with food, I eat a lot of the same things, like a lot. Like if I really like something, I'll eat it, like every day. I feel like I used to enjoy food a lot more when I was a lot younger, but now, I think I just eat because I kind of just have to eat. I eat a lot of takeout, and yeah, lots of the same things, like over and over again. I'll go to the same spot, order the same thing. Yeah.
All right. And just wanting to check in, Shoulder, were you able to share your piece?
My 2 pieces are actually sitting behind you. They're visible. And for this show, the pieces that are on view are connected with a series I'm working on called Future Voters. It just so happens that I was dealing with the issue of food and voting because in several states during the election period, they made it illegal to pass out food or water while people were standing in line to vote. So that was my focus. It's a very specific focus, but that was my focus with food for this series. I am also a vegetarian, and I've been a vegetarian since 1974. it's much easier to be a vegetarian today than it was in the previous century because you have a lot of options.
All right. Okay. And jumping into our next question. What message would you like for others to take from your art?
With my piece, I want people to take away the importance of giving back and why it is important to give back, because everybody doesn't have the same access to the resources as everybody have, and some people are underprivileged, and to also share the history of what the Black Panthers did too. So that's what I want people to take back.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I feel like from my piece specifically, I think I want people to take away like a feeling of nostalgia almost, because like the perspective of it is kind of from a childlike lens. Growing up and like just watching my mom cook and stuff like that, I feel like everybody can connect to that like core memory and even relate to it still as an adult, watching their family members cook.
My piece with the receipts, I'm not sure exactly what I would want a person to take from it, but when I was, I guess, putting it all together, I was really thinking about like the value of all these things and affordability. You know what it really means to be healthy in 2023. What it costs to be healthy, you know, like the monetary value of a life, of feeding yourself. Yeah, I guess I could say, I want a person to think about like the monetary value of feeding yourself and what it costs to keep a person alive, you know, via food. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And for the next question I have for you all, what themes do you touch on frequently in your art?
I know with my art, I touch on like a lot of like life lessons and just dealing with the ups and downs of it, and also sharing like a lot of history, like from like Black culture, and a lot of what reflects through my life that stems from that. So it's just a lot of like Black experiences, and there's a lot of culture.
I'd say the same for mine. I like people to have like that relatable feeling, I guess, when they see my pieces. They usually focus on like experiences as like a Black person or African American in America. So yeah.
And what about you, Shorter?
My pieces tend to focus on a wide range of subjects, and they're all related to something within the African diaspora. Before COVID, I did a fair amount of traveling. So whenever I was in another country, I would look at the African diaspora in that country, like what did the African diaspora look like in Switzerland, or what did it look like in London, or what did it look like in India? And I always learned a lot about those different cultures and the fact that people who are African descent are all over the globe. And wherever we go, we tend to add something to the mix. So I'm intrigued by culture and how the diaspora affects culture globally.
All right. I'd now love for you guys to tell us a little bit more about your pieces in the exhibition and how they came to be and just some of the processes that followed them.
Well, my piece, it actually came from just reading about the Black Panthers and learning about what they did in the past, and that resonated with me because I understand the importance of giving back, and I wanted to make a piece that reflected that. And how I went about it, that piece is actually digital, so I did all of that digitally, and yeah.
Can I jump in here because I'm going to have to go in just a few minutes. My pieces are on wood. I'm an assemblage artist, and I tend to cut and sew into wood. There's a lot of stitch work that goes into it, and I add other objects with the work. So although I consider myself a painter, I am really working in a collage-like manner on wood and attaching objects. Right now, I happen to be at an artist residency. I'm in San Angelo, Virginia right now, and all of us are in studios. So in my studio space, I have my easel, my paints, and a bunch of power tools. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
All right. So my piece, which is a collection of receipts, it wasn't very hard to compile. I just kept the receipts, and I like to show like collections of things in a way that I guess I think we don't normally see it, because we might collect a lot of receipts but never actually lay them flat and see how far they go. So that was the idea that went into it. I like to get stuff that we see all the time, and I put them in a way that you don't normally see them, to I guess encourage myself and whoever looks at it to think about it in a way that you probably wouldn't probably wouldn't before. But yeah, I'm still collecting receipts, trying to grow this, see how big it could get, and just to think like I'm just one person, and how many receipts do you collect, in a year's time? Like, yeah, that's my process. It's not, I don't really go out of my way to get the materials. I put them all together in like 3 nights. Not for long. It didn't take long. It's just like my back get kind of tired with the tape. But yeah, it wasn't difficult collecting, and it wasn't difficult putting it together. I like that it's also very light, so I can like disassemble it and move it around very easily. Yeah, those are some of the ideas that go into it.
Yeah, so my piece conceptually, it came about quite literally. I went downstairs and my mom was cooking a whole just meal in the kitchen. She usually cooks like some pound cake, fries some fish, some string beans, got some mac and cheese in the little white pan over there. So she actually wasn't wearing this and her hair didn't look like that. So I took a picture of her for a reference and she was like, you have to change what I'm wearing. You have to change my hair. Da, da, da. So I had to change all of that. And I ended up putting her in this robe that my grandmother used to wear. And the lace that you see, the lace detail on the end of her like sleeve is actually like real lace that I pasted on there from a baby book that my grandmother made for me when I was younger. And yeah, I would say it's kind of mixed media in that sense. As you can see, like there's some texture on the beads of the hair the girl has, and like her cornrows are made from yarn. And I kind of just included some other things that reminds me of my family, like the seasonings and the little sculpture in the back and the calla lilies in the pot. Those are all representative of my family. And I used so much color because originally it was another piece underneath of there that had a whole bunch of different colorful like triangles and stuff, but I hated it, so I just went over it. And I made this piece, and that color kind of inspired the point of view and the perspective of this piece, which is from that childlike lens. So I feel like that really helped give it that kind of memory look. And I use like the sfumato technique at the bottom to kind of give it that distant, faint memory kind of visual that you see in like movies and stuff. So yeah, that's how my piece came about.
All right. And my next question for you guys is going to be, What parts of Baltimore have influenced your work?
Honestly, for me, the whole city. It's hard to just pick one area because I was born and raised here. I just want to say, like, yeah, the whole city. There's so much culture like throughout the city. It's hard for me to pick one area.
For me, I'm not from here, so I moved here. I lived here for about a year in like 2021, and then I moved away for like a couple months, and I moved back, and I live here now still. So I really, for the most part, have just experienced like downtown, or, like the inner city. But there has been I've done a couple of like meals where I've like put plates together and stuff to give out to the people that I usually see just on my way home and stuff like that, like the original like the common routes that I take and stuff because I always see them, the same people. Um, so I try to like, give back to them and stuff like that. And they're just always so grateful more than anything, like just always so grateful for anything that you give them. And I also see like a lot of graffiti work on the walls here, even though it's like
Mhm.
everywhere, but I feel like it's really, really like common here. And there was one thing that I saw not too long ago. I took a picture of it as a reference for a piece actually, and it looked like a kid maybe had some spray paint or something. And it was like a little drawing, but it was like a kid's drawing. It was like of a house and it's like like a little family or something like that, and just red spray paint on the brick wall. And I thought that was so interesting. So things like that. I take like little things and I note them in my work, I feel like, and it influences me like that. And it also just makes me think of like the scarcity and stuff kind of here. Cause sometimes it feels like Baltimore was kind of left in the distance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I don't understand why. It's such a great city. But yeah, I feel like it affects me in that way whenever I think about things like that.
Chloe, you were kind of touching on it, but the next question I wanted to ask you guys is, as Baltimore artists, how do you feel like the city supports the arts, or how do you feel like even not the city as like a government standing thing, but as like the people here and the other artists here, how do you feel like that community shows up for you? Or where do you see the connection most? Where do you see more of the effort for it or a place for your art, if you see one?
Yeah, I feel like definitely thanks to you especially, like, have just shown up for me in different ways in the area between like this and the other event that you had me in. And also I have a good friend, Brian, the Black Genius Art Show, if you've heard of him. Yeah, him and like Quirky and just the whole community there. We all support each other they just bring us together into one spot. And it's just all of these artists under one roof. And we just always collaborate and like have ideas on top of ideas. And even when we just go to hang out, we always end up painting or like just doing something collaborative or putting something together, some sort of show or any way that they support us. We just show up for each other on like social media, in person, different events, things like that. So I think it's a very like homey and familial community here for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same like with me. I feel like it's about just finding your community. And once you find that and just like-minded people, everybody come together and to support. So I definitely feel like in the city, it is definitely like supportive. And once you put the work out, the right people going to show up. And I feel like it's about finding your tribe. And once you do that, everything would just start connecting. So I definitely, yep. So I definitely feel like the city is definitely supportive. But sometimes I feel like it is like overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're looking at it from an out of the state perspective. So it's a yin and yang to it, but it's
Can I
definitely that.
add on to that? Yeah, I definitely think like it is overlooked for sure. Because even just moving here, I wasn't even aware. I was like, what is the art scene here? Like,
Yeah.
who's all here? So I kind of like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into for real, or like if I was getting myself into anything at all.
Right.
Cause like I didn't even know any Baltimore artists, but I'm like, there has to be a scene because Micah's out here and, just
Mhm.
people in general. And so, yeah, starting like when I met Brian and like Quirky and them, they kind of like really put me on and introduced me and stuff. And like they're always so just willing really to like put you out there and like make you go get it really. It's so much fun. But yeah, especially not being from here, I feel like it was I was like, oh, like I was kind of surprised almost that there even was like such a deep scene
Yeah.
for the artists and stuff, which is like it shouldn't be a surprise, but it was nonetheless because I feel like nobody really talks about it too much. But
Yeah.
y'all definitely have some great.
It definitely feels like an instance of like, if you know, you know,
Yeah.
especially for Baltimore artists and the art scene as a whole and the art community. I feel like those of us who are really aware of it and tapped into it, it's such like an overflowing resource. But a lot of people, like you're saying, from that outside view, aren't giving Baltimore all of its credit. So
Right.
it's a lot smaller until you're here, and then it's suddenly this surprise of where did this come from? But
Mhm.
it's been here the whole time,
Exactly.
you know? You want to jump in with one or anything?
Yeah. So I'm between Montgomery County, PG County, Elliott City, and Bolton Hill. And I'm not really sure like regionally how like those places identify, but I'm like moving around all those places. And yeah, out of all those places, I find right here in Baltimore, a bit. It's like it's kind of like it feel more lively to me. As I say, I can't really reference because like I'd overhear people talking and they'd be like, oh, that's like they refer to Montgomery like country or something, you know? And I'm like, I don't know. I never saw it that way, but just, you know, seeing how people say places, I could be like, okay, I get, you know, I get why they would say that if they're comparing it to like a busier part of Maryland. But yeah, Baltimore is where I made like my first friends in Maryland who are artists. It's where I first show my work here. And you know, like I'll search online for like artists and like I'll follow people or follow pages that highlight people and then follow people. And yeah, it seems like a lot going on in Baltimore more than Montgomery or these other places because I see stuff going on there, but it don't really fit. It don't really fit me, you know. It's like they have like art parades and stuff like that, but it just feels like yeah, it don't really feel like it fit what I'm talking about or you know. So I did find a community in Baltimore, and it did feel similar to how Kingston feels. That's where I spent a lot of my life. When it comes to art and like a scene, and you know, sometimes it kind of made me nervous because you know, there's also things I don't really like about like a scene, you know, or being feeling so close, feeling like everyone knows everyone in a way. Sometimes it get kind of claustrophobic.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes it's like a shock. Like you know some people, and then you think you're spread out all over the place, and then it's like no, you're right in the middle of like something. Like everybody around you knows the person, you know. So yeah, it's been cool to slowly like realize that the more time I spend in Baltimore, realizing how the different spaces are connected, how the people are connected, and yeah, just figuring out that very slowly, you know, taking my time.
I'm glad you actually brought that up because my next question is, as artists in the community, what resource do you think it would be most valuable for the arts here? Or what resource do you think we should be amplifying in a sense? Whether it be a message or a direct thing that people can tap into, or just maybe a certain idea that you would like for people to focus on a little bit more.
I know with me personally, I would love to see like a creative hub. It was a place I used to go to called the Bell Foundry, and a lot of people in that was just like into like different creative pockets and outlets, and I felt like that's missing because it can just bring like a certain hub of people together, and that can just create this wonders. So I feel like that's what's needed, like a creative hub.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Cause like that's basically essentially what I was saying with like all the artist friends that I found here and stuff like that. It's literally like just going to a hub whenever we go to Brian's store. And like that on a larger scale would be insane.
Mhm.
Cause everybody like they have like these art Mageddons where we like compete against each other and people come and watch and blah, blah, blah. And like seeing how excited everybody gets over that and like how much we just bounce off of each other when we're just all in a room together. Like I could imagine that being crazy with a whole bunch of other people coming
Yeah.
together.
That'd be wild.
I want to ask you guys, what do you feel like your favorite medium to work in is?
But me, it's acrylic and oil. I like acrylic because it dries fast. So like if I have like an idea, I can just easily get it out. But with oil, I could take my time with it and mix the different types of shades and gradients. So it's acrylic and oil for me.
I like that because people be hating on acrylic real hard.
Yeah,
I feel
acrylic
like
tight.
everybody's like oil this, oil that, when really acrylic can get
Acrylic
you
goes
very
hard,
far.
guys.
Exactly. Like what? I love acrylic. But I have been starting to work with oils more recently, so I understand now where everybody's coming from. But I just can't have my painting just wet and because I brush past my paintings and stuff, so I'll just have paint on my clothes, like just random stuff. But I definitely like mixed media as well. Like how I said, I incorporated the lace. I don't do too much really with it, but like I like to definitely incorporate it into a piece. Like it's never, well, sometimes, but it's rarely just like a flat painting for me. There's always going to be something in there, like one or two things at least that I kind of incorporate something else because I feel like it helps really just bring it to life. And usually it's like mixed media stuff that I like put together with my hands. So I feel like kind of almost sculpting things together can bring it together well. Yeah, and I also like working with gouache because it's pretty cool.
I like working with paint as well. I work with watercolors. But more recently, like my favorite thing is just like stuff that I'd find. Stuff that I don't necessarily have to go to seek out really. Like I might use like there might be some I buy all the time. So I have like a lot of lids of that same thing or just like a large collection of the same thing based on just doing the same thing. Like the receipts or I was in Florida the other day and Florida and I just collected stuff. I went to every time I had takeout, I took the menu with me. I found like I was in this college town and I found this letter somebody wrote because it was I think like it was like some final year person writing to their roommate. And it was just in the rain, lost. And so like, like I like to find stuff and scan them or show them as is. Cause I really liked painting. I was painting primarily, but then I just kind of kept going bigger with the canvases and then they got really cumbersome to carry around everywhere. And then so I really started liking like really light stuff that could still get big, like folding paper or just sticking a whole bunch of stuff together. So I call that mixed media or also scanning. So I just get them digital and I just have a file. So yeah, mixed media, digital stuff I really like right now. Yeah.
I wanted to note, like, I like the fact that you're using like resources that you already have at your disposal. Cause it's like, I feel like with art, a lot of times people forget that you can literally turn anything into art. Like you can
Mhm.
take anything and make it into the piece that you want to make it into. Um, like I don't think you always need to go out and buy a whole bunch of different materials, like especially because art
Exactly.
materials are expensive,
Mhm.
extremely expensive. So yeah, I literally do the same thing. I just be looking. I have like this big bin in my house, and I feel like most artists do have like these little compartments in their house with just a whole bunch of stuff, like a whole bunch of old art supplies. I have art supplies that go back to like 2016, and I just be rummaging through the bin, like what can I make out of all this stuff?
Mhm.
Literally just piece it together. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I think something that can happen for a lot of artists and even just for people themselves, we can get trapped into kind of this idea of over consumption and that like the things that we do have to be started from new things and
Yeah.
fresh
Mhm.
things. We can't use what we already have. We can't take from the past because it's supposed to be this step forward. And that's away from that. But I think when we hyper focus on that, it can be incredibly wasteful, but also it disconnects us from those things because they hold power, they hold as
Yeah.
much potency as new things. But yeah.
Yeah, like literally, it's like there's so much energy that goes into like a piece. And I feel like even with that piece, like I was saying, there was a piece underneath it. And I put months and months and months of work into that piece. And then I was like, I just don't like it. So I just went over it.
It'd
I was
be
like, I
like
just
that
put something else
sometimes.
over
I
it.
just don't
Yeah,
like it.
literally. But like I enjoyed the like the base of what was there. So I just
Mhm.
went off that, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And then it came to be a whole new thing, turned into a whole new piece. So I think that's pretty cool notes.
That kind of inspires my next question. To what importance do you see renewal or kind of that idea of new to old and changing things in their past state? Are you against taking works and trashing it and starting over? Or is it, no, I need a fresh canvas every single time? Or no, I need to build it ground up from whatever it is into this new form? Which do you feel like fits you a little bit better or is it changing?
Yeah, I know with me, like if I'm not feeling a piece, I'm just gonna like paint over it.
Mhm.
Like I used to kind of want my work to be perfect in a way. And it's
Mhm.
like now I kind of realize like perfection is like an illusion. So it's like if I'm not feeling it or if it's not up to par, how I like it, I'm just gonna paint over it.
Mhm.
So I don't have no problems like painting over like old work.
Yeah, gotta
Yeah.
learn your process.
Exactly.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. Like I was trying to make everything perfect or like sometimes when I would paint and like my paint would like have some texture to it or like from the how it gets on the side of the brush and it
Mhm.
kind of if you're gonna paint it too
Yeah,
hard,
yeah.
like yeah, and like if that would dry up, I would be so mad because I'm like, dang, it's not flat now, like all that stuff. And after a while, I was just like, who is the point of all that? And I think that's what really helped me find my painting style.
Mhm.
Cause like I really just like to make like real loose brush strokes. A lot of
Mhm.
times, even if there is like realism in there, like I'll do some blending here and there, but like usually for a background or like any texture or like clothing, I'll just start just wish,
Mhm.
stop trying to make everything so perfect.
Yeah.
And my art teacher in high school definitely told me stop being scared to start over.
Mhm.
Cause it's just it's your hands. So anything you made, you can make it again, and you can just restart or refresh. You don't necessarily need a new canvas or anything
Mhm.
like that, I don't think. And quite honestly, I think it's really hard to start on a new, fresh, blank canvas.
It
It's
is.
so
It is.
It's
hard.
It
intimidating.
is.
It's so
It's
intimidating.
very
It is.
You just got this big white canvas in front of you. It's like endless ideas. You could just do anything. And like, I don't know. I feel like an old piece is like, it feels like home almost. Like I could just go ahead and just get into it.
a little bit more familiar, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
literally. Yeah, exactly how it is.
Mhm. You have any thoughts from him?
Yeah. Yeah, I work with old stuff a lot. Cause I will I'll keep adding to something.
Mhm.
Keep painting on top of something or I like the whole idea of ongoing stuff of
Mhm.
like building up a large collection. Um but renewal. Mm, like um I it's like I'll paint some like I'll have an idea for a painting
Mhm.
and I'll start and then I change my mind like on the way and change to something else or
Mhm.
I have like right now I have like a lot of canvases that I don't I'm not really sure what to do with them, but I have stuff on them, and I'll still get new ideas and get like a new canvas and like paint. But and I guess I tell myself that like maybe one day I will know what to do with these. Luckily I have space, but that's not something I always think of too, of like how much space all this stuff take up, and what happens if something happened to me and like there's just all this stuff here, or I need to move and there's just all this stuff here. So yeah, it's something I think about a lot. The materials and using them, reusing them. Also with work too, I find that just for example, like I was the last 2 months I was in Florida, and I was thinking, like my head was in a different space. I was like compiling stuff, collecting stuff, taking pictures and videos of stuff. And I was trying to just make everything there. But then I didn't end up doing that. And then now I'm in Maryland, and all the stuff just like feels like junk to me. Like I can't, like I just in such a different headspace. Coming back in this unexpected way. And also I was kind of sick when I just got back. And so I'm just looking at all the videos and the pics and the stuff I compile, and I'm like just not as inspired by them anymore. And I think, luckily it's just like kind of like trash in a kind of way. It's just like receipts and menus and stuff like that, photographs that don't take up a lot of space. But yeah, I think about that too, like I have a big iCloud with tons of pictures that like I'd be like, oh yeah, this is a reference, this is a cool video, and I just never really do anything with them. But yeah, luckily they're small, a lot of them, so I can delete them anytime or just move on, Yeah.
I want to give you a thumbs up because literally every question so far, you're like perfectly segueing into it for me. And just thank you for that. Just had to appreciate. But you were kind of talking about sometimes that difference in headspace and kind of the difficulty sometimes with looking at art in different headspaces and the challenge of approaching it. I wanted to ask you all, what do you feel like is your biggest challenge in your work? Whether it be for directly about your skill, or if it be just something mentally, the way you want to see it, a certain concept you want to touch on. What do you feel like is the thing you find yourself revisiting and just like, how can I look at that? How can I come to it and address it in a different way? What's your biggest challenge?
I would say
Take your time to think if you need. I'm not
Yeah, you got
rushing
me
you.
thinking.
I want you to think though.
But low
rush.
key, I always think about it.
Okay.
So I feel like my biggest challenge is trying to make a piece that's like true to myself 100%. I feel like a lot of times I can be easily, not the ideas or concepts necessarily, but the execution of them can be easily swayed by where I want to see myself in the future with my work, and like what I think other people want to see, or like galleries and places. And I feel like at a certain point, I was kind of making art for other people and not myself, which strips it of its substance, I think. Or it does for me personally. And yeah, I think trying to get back into the groove of making things with just nobody else's thoughts or opinions in my mind, I feel like it was kind of difficult. I think I got out of that transition more so like 2022. And I've just been making more work that's true to myself. And I think it's also difficult to get up and make these pieces, and especially in a society where you have to get up and work every day, and like you just have all these responsibilities and bills and things like that. It's like hard to find time sometimes to sit down and just enjoy your work. So I've been trying to like intentionally make room for my pieces instead of kind of just doing it whenever I just so happen to get the chance, yeah, because I feel like I've just been kind of lazy with it, if that makes sense. But I want to be, you have to force yourself back into it sometimes, or like break through that kind of block that's there sometimes. So yeah, I've definitely been trying to overcome that and be more in tune with my pieces, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I feel like this is kind of like the same with me. Like, I went through a phase of like keeping up like with social media and like trying to keep up with how people think your art should look and what they like and trying to cater to that. I feel like that was my biggest challenge, just breaking out of that habit of like trying to keep up with social media and trying to keep up with the likes and the comments and all of that. And the moment I became like detached from that, that's when I started to break away from that type of mindset. Because sometimes that can be like a creative toll on you, just mentally. So
Yeah, I feel like social media definitely has a big role to play in that, especially like if one, like a specific piece gets a lot of attention or something like that, then you kind of feel like almost obligated to make more work like that, or just at least just keep pushing stuff out for people to see at that point, like keep their attention while you have it almost. And I don't know, I feel like that just creates burnout, honestly.
it's draining.
Difficulty. A real difficult thing for me with the work is writing about it. If I have to make like a statement, difficult. Like I can write a lot and say a lot, but it's hard to sometimes I'm not sure like even like what, like how the writing would connect to the work in a way. Kind of like, I mean, I found that with even this work, the receipts as well, where I wasn't making the work and thinking about all these themes at the same time. I was just collecting the receipts. And so yeah, sometimes I would write something and like I'd just be kind of scrutinizing myself if like this is actually connected to the work in a way. Like I wrote something really long. Yeah, it was about family, and it was really cool to see that Chloe's piece was about family as well, in that way. And so that's kind of a challenge for me sometimes, where I would have like lots of stuff that mean a lot to me, but then to get them in a museum or in a gallery, I would have to then write like a compelling thing. Because to me, like the writing itself is like, it feels like a whole different art form too, So so yeah, it feels good sometimes when like I really write what feels authentic to me, and it connects, and like, because that's how it felt with this show too, with these receipts. I was glad that I could write something that felt like it itself is something, and then these receipts themselves are something, and have it and feel kind of like understood, and like seeing it received that kind of way too. But yeah, I enjoy writing and thinking about the work, but I guess the challenge is feeling confident enough to put the both of them out there together and say, this is the accompanying idea with this piece. Yeah, that's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I really agree with that writing part. I don't know how I forgot about that. Because I just feel like if I wanted to write, I would have written about it. I wouldn't have, done a visual. Yeah, like that literally, I feel like a lot of times, even like there are certain like exhibitions or just like things that I want to participate in, and I'll just make it through the whole process. But once they tell you to write that paragraph describing something or tell you about your work or or don't let it be a portfolio either, whether you have to describe each piece. Most of the time that's where I give up, honestly. I just feel like I have no idea.
I think as an artist, but also as someone who enjoys writing, it definitely is I think sometimes it can be unfair to ask an artist to go ahead and give you a whole write-up about their thing. Because just as you said, if they wanted to write about it, they would.
Mhm.
But it also just further magnifies the importance of just having resources and places where artists can get that type of training. Because it's a lot to learn how to write about art and do it in a way that serves both the artist and also whatever project they're trying to work on.
Mhm.
And it is an art form and sometimes can be really tricky. But like you guys say, it's definitely an art. We do have one question that was posted. In this digital world, do you all feel like working with your hands helps you find balance? Thank you for the question.
For sure. Yeah. I think working with your hands really puts, not saying that digital art doesn't necessarily, but I don't know, when you're like physically touching something and like putting it to another object, like there's just, a transfer of energy there. And like there's just so much that goes into that. And sometimes, well, for me, I feel like all my physical work is a lot more intentional and a lot more meaningful than my digital work. I feel like a lot of my digital work is just for fun, kind of. Like I always like when people ask me about my stuff, I'm like, yeah, my digital work is my fun work, and then my paintings are like my serious stuff. And because I just feel like I can get the execution is just better when I work with my hands opposed to digital work. How I was saying with the mixed media, there's certain times where I feel like digital art I'm not as vocal through it, if that makes sense, or I can't get my idea across as much than with the physical pieces.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I feel like working with your hands is like, it's low key spiritual because it's like,
Yes.
I know with me, when I'm using my hands, it's like intuitive. And I go with my feeling. And I feel like
Yes.
once I'm doing that, I'm just so tapped in and in tune. And yeah, I feel like working with your hands is super spiritual. And it keeps you present and just
Definitely.
sane, and sane too as an artist.
And you're low-key like using your whole body when you do it too, especially like if you're painting or something, especially like if you're standing up with an easel, canvas on an easel, you're putting your whole body and flow into the whole creation of it.
Yeah, the motion.
I like to think of visual art as our mind dancing. So we get to see a physical interpretation of what it looks like for our mind to flow freely and openly and kind of like you were saying, intuitively. So that's just how I would see it.
For sure.
Definitely.
We have another question from the audience. Are you all able to live as full-time artists?
I know with me, thankfully, yes. Like,
Snaps to you. That's beautiful.
I give major props to my family. That's my support system. And if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have gotten this far. So yeah, I'm thankful. That's my family for real.
That's beautiful.
I live as a full-time artist, mostly because I'm a tattoo artist, so that kind of helps. But yeah, as far as I'm sure if I was more intentional with like my artwork or had more time to kind of capitalize off it, I suppose that I could. But yeah, it's mostly the tattoos.
Not full time, but I say most of the time. Yeah, it's kind of like how we were talking about using your body with the arts or your whole body. I think I that way too of like everything I'm doing, where I'm going, things that happen. I'll sometimes force myself to to look at it in a creative way as like some art thing. Like recently I was in Florida and I had to really it was not under the best circumstances, but I had to, no, I didn't have to, but I did just try to imagine it as some kind of art residency to be like, I'm here for a short time. What can I do? What am I observing? What can I bring back? So in that way, I would say it feels kind of like I'm a full-time artist because I'm like always trying to shape everything into some creative thing. I do right now, like money primarily, I do deliveries for this app called Instacart. I do that, and it's interesting. You know, it's interesting because there's this thing I noticed. Like I've noticed trends based on like orders. Like during a certain time, I'd see everybody ordering like flu medicine and humidifiers and stuff like that. Or sometimes I go to Giant a lot, and I'd go to some like far Giant, and then I noticed that all the supermarkets insides kind of look the same. So sometimes I'll be in a Giant and like I'll forget what Giant I'm at because they all just look the same. And you know, just things like that. You know, I look and I'm like, you know, like it's interesting, and it's like it just feels creative in its own kind of way. So in my mind I'd say full time, but like money, I don't sell artwork. I don't get like money from a lot of the things I paint. And because I'm not sure how to sell them. You know, I would like to sell them, but I'm not sure what's like the best way, or if I'm selling myself short, or so I mean I find I just hold on to them for a long time as I figure that part out.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned Instacart. I used to do Instacart too, and it was like it's so interesting, like seeing what people order, and like it's so crazy. Also, where like just how the contrast in the areas it sends you to, and like the people buying different stuff, and like how much they tip or how much they don't tip, or da 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 da. It's just so interesting, and even just like the stores that are mostly requested. Like I think when I moved to Baltimore, I was looking. Even though I never did it in Baltimore, because I was like, what in the world? The people would order like 100 items for like $9. And I was like, what?
Crazy.
Yes. And it would all be from Family Dollar. All of them are from Family Dollar. I'm like, why? And there's your resources. Yeah, that's true. And yeah, I just like that note because that was pretty interesting.
Lexi, I was wondering if I can ask a question,
go ahead.
please. I find this actually a really interesting transition to talk a little bit about the theme of the exhibition. And what was your curatorial vision? Why did you choose these artworks and these artists for this show?
So the entire vision for the show, when I was coming about for it, I wanted to do something that was significant to Baltimore. I wanted to do something that I felt would raise awareness for something in Baltimore, but at the same time, give people a wide enough range that any artist could come into it. I do realize that after picking the theme, it is a very, very specific topic of food insecurity. But when I was reaching out to the artists and everything, I was really looking for any type of connection to food, because although the exhibition is about food insecurity, it's really about the bonds that we create in the way our minds process and think about food ultimately, whether it be seen as a survival tactic, a community building thing, or even something that's as an intimate thing between our families. It's very important to me to spotlight those types of relationships and give them spaces for not only for us to discuss them, but also for others to just dive deeper into what that means for themselves. I chose the 4 artists because, well, from Chloe's piece itself, it was involved in another gallery that I've done in the past. And it jumped to my mind as soon as I was coming up with the idea for just, this is supposed to spotlight food itself. And I remember your Easter Sunday piece, and I remember just looking at it for the first time and there being such a warmth to it, and it felt familiar. And that is exactly what I think of when thinking of food. I don't associate it with being outside or not in connection with my family and everything. I see it as this familiar thing, this thing that I know and that feels like it's mine already. And when I looked at Chloe's piece itself, I got that same feeling. And I thought that others could also see that and align themselves with that feeling. And then for Ramon's work, it's also accompanied by a beautifully written artist statement. For those of you who haven't already stopped into the Peale, if you come in, we have a QR code to show you the full thing. And he really goes into depth about how capitalism also influences how we view food, but also how it changes our family dynamics and everything. And while we are talking about food insecurity here, it has so many other things, like I've said before, other factors that play into it and how it comes to be in different ranges of ways it shows up, and it becoming a product and a commodity and something that is used for survival and not for the wellness of everyone around it, I think is a very important critique to make. But also the entire statement that's attached to it really beautifully goes through the transition of the different times in your life where you were really thinking about these things, and then also like your mind as you move through it as the individual. Because I think it's also important for us to highlight our community, but also understand where we fall in our community, because we are products of our environment, but at the same time, we are still ourselves. And for us to properly know ourselves and express ourselves, we have to see where we fall in our community. And unless you have a clear outline of that, it can be sometimes cloudy and not so certain of how you can assist or step up in your community. So I think having such a clear and individual way of looking at just like the prompt for the exhibition. I also love just the installation of the receipts. I think being able to see them physically held up, they're receipts, they're light. But when you see the installation here in person, it has a certain type of weight to it. You know, you look at it and even then there's a story, there is a certain feeling and sense of, look at this history here with all these insignificant words and notes and stores and all those things, but the entire collection altogether has a tremendous weight to it. And I just really liked that element in the work itself. And then for Maurice's piece with the Black Panthers, I thought it directly touched on what I'm trying to say here. Not only just that, hey, even if we are in food insecure spaces or food deserts itself, there's still community groups and organizations like our wonderful partners like Outcast Food Network, the Baltimore Hunger Project, and the Maryland Food Bank that are trying to step up, that are pouring back into our communities and stepping in where other resources might fall off. Because like you guys were saying before, sometimes Baltimore can feel like it's kind of forgotten, it's kind of lost, it's on the back burner, or the things that are spotlighted in this city don't truly show what the city is. Our city isn't just crime, our city isn't just this cesspool of nothing, it's a community, it's a beautiful artist hub that's overflowing and everything. And so just showing that it really does take a village, it's more than one of us. Really, I just wanted for others to be able to look at the pieces, even with Shoulder Cherries, the future voter suppression series and everything. So the series isn't directly about food itself, but the works that Shoulder has on display here display a cupcake, a water bottle, and watermelon. And a critique that he's trying to make with the works itself is kind of on voter suppression, about how we have children and everything, and they may not be aware of those things like voter suppression and other outside social influences that will ultimately shape their world, but they still have a tremendous weight and play into their lives. And food insecurity is one of those things. It's not just a single concept or theme that tries to downplay ourselves and limit the amount that we can operate in and be our true selves in. It's things like food insecurity, redlining, things like voter suppression and all those that just pour into the collective effort to suppress our communities and not give them the full range of voice that they deserve. So including the two pieces there also, I felt spoke to the range of things that falls into the way our city is now. So I'm very honored to have such four talented artists here and a part of it, because I truly think that their stories and also their messages are beautifully shown in their works. And it also is just a great showcasing of the type of artists that can be found in Baltimore.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
A lot.
Can I ask a question?
Of course. This is discussion.
Yes. I have a question for you guys individually.
Hello.
So for you, Ramon, I have a question. How long did it take you to like curate all these receipts like over time?
I'd say started in the year 2021. So these aren't all the receipts that it's just these are just like
There were
supermarket
two other
receipts.
rows of receipts when Ramon dropped
Really?
everything.
Oh,
Yes.
that's not all of them?
No,
Oh.
we had listen. When you guys see, you'll see how big it is. It takes up almost the whole wall that it's on. But there was more. There was more, guys.
Wow.
Yeah, from 2021, I was just collecting, rolling them up in a ball. That's what, two years?
Mhm.
Yeah, still collecting. I have another bunch at home, but yeah, just collecting, see how it's just a growing piece, that I guess I'll show constantly as much space as I'm allowed to. I will show. So 2 years,
Mhm.
2 years ongoing. Yeah, 2+.
And you said you work with like watercolor, right? A lot?
Yeah,
Would you
yeah.
ever like incorporate that with like using the receipts at all? You know what I mean? Or do you keep that kind of separate, like the two medias?
Well, it has been separate. I mean, I wouldn't say I would never paint on them, but haven't done it yet. Yeah, very different approach to painting, I think, than with the receipts. So, I mean, I don't see it in my mind crossing, but who knows? Probably I'll paint.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And Maurice, for you,
Chloe, this is just going to be our last remark before we close out. So go
Okay.
ahead. I'll let you.
Okay.
I just wanted to know what inspired the color choices that you used in the piece.
I use the blue a lot because somebody close to me passed away,
Mhm.
and I felt like the blue, it just reflected just the emotions that I was going through at the time. And now with the blue, I try to look at it in a more positive aspect and just keep pushing the blue and see how far I can take it. So that's where the blue stems from.
I like that. It's very bold. I feel like it reminds me of like blue black kind of.
Yeah, that's what I be trying to go for, like that combination.
Yeah, it's nice.
Thank you.
All right. And on that note, everyone, I would like to thank you all for participating and joining us for tonight for our discussion. Before we wrap things up, I'd like to remind you all that the exhibition is available to be viewed in person at the Peale until January 29th. Please join us for a closing reception to celebrate the show's run on January 27th from 3 to 5 p.m. You can find more information at thepeale.org. The Peale is Baltimore's community museum and currently has 3 other exhibitions on in the building. Lee Boots Artists and Artifacts, which closes on February 12th. Quilted Connections, Sisterhood in Cloth from the African American Quilters of Baltimore, with quilts by Sandra Smith, Rosalind Robinson, and Glenda Richardson on display until January 29th. And the Sankofa Experience, which will be closing on January 15th with the closing event on the 14th. We'd also like to extend a thanks to our sponsor, Fulton Bank, for their efforts in making this exhibition possible. And I'd also like to thank the Peale personally for hosting us in this space and having me as a fellow and allowing for us to come in and do these types of things. For artists, it brings a tremendous love and amount of gratitude into my life. And we'd also, once again, just like to highlight our partners, the Outcast Food Network, the Maryland Food Bank, and the Baltimore Hunger Project. For anyone interested in stopping into the Peale, they're open on Thursdays and Fridays from 3 to 7 p.m. and Saturday and Sundays from 10 to 4 p.m. We hope you guys stop in and give us a chance. And if not, have a great night.
And thank you, Lexi.
Yeah, thanks, Lexi.
Thank you. Congrats.